Okay, so we start with the types of checking accounts. The basic checking account is the one that most of us have heard of. It's the one that most, if you have one, it's probably the kind you have. It's probably the kind that your parents have. It's the most widely used one, and it usually doesn't pay interest. It's just a normal checking account. Second kind, interest-bearing checking accounts. It's what you would think. They actually do pay interest. However, you usually have to keep a minimum balance in there in order to get that interest. If you don't keep that minimum balance, they charge you a service charge, which is usually way more than the interest that you would get. So if you can't keep whatever their minimum balance is in there, you're better off getting just a basic checking account. So this one pays interest, but a minimum balance is required. So like you might have to keep $500 in there. And if you can't keep $500 in there, then you should just go ahead and have a basic checking account. They can't drop below that minimum amount. If it does, they just charge you a service charge, which at my bank, a service charge is like $8. It depends bank to bank. But the interest that you would get is like not even 1%, I think. So it's so not worth it unless you can keep that money in there. Then the next one are called our free checking accounts. Most basic checking accounts are actually free checking accounts too. They require no minimum balance, and they charge no maintenance fee. Now, most personal checking accounts don't charge a maintenance fee anyways, but occasionally, like if you have a business checking account, then they usually will charge a fee every month for keeping your money in there. Because if it's a business account, it requires a little bit more work on the bank's part. And then the last type of checking account on this page that we're going to talk about are joint checking accounts. These are obviously accounts owned by more than one person. Like a lot, not all, but a lot of married people have a joint checking account. So the checks and the transactions can be made by both people. Both people can make deposits, make withdrawals, write checks. It can be more than two people. A joint checking account just has to be more than one person. So if you had a business and you needed somebody needed somebody else to do it as well, then you could have a third person on there. Let me caution you, as you get older or whatever, move out on your own, your seniors, be careful about getting a joint checking account. I know, like when you are with somebody and you think you're in love, and you may be in love, that doesn't mean that they're very financially stable. So just know if their name is on that account, it doesn't matter who puts the money in there, that person can take the money out. So just let me caution you, be very careful before you open a joint checking account. Be sure. You have no recourse. You can't go up there and say, oh, but I just deposited my check and it was $500 and he took it out or she took it out. That doesn't matter. Their name's on it. They can do that. Okay, next is the express checking accounts. These are for your online only banks. These are online only. There is no physical bank in which you can go into. It's all online. It's called an express checking account. It works just like a regular checking account. It's just online. So if you have any issues or anything, you'll just have to contact them online. Now accounts. Now stands for negotiable order of withdrawal. These are free, and I use that term lightly with quotes around it. Free checkings accounts. So kind of free as long as and then there's usually a list of things that you have to do. One of which is you can make withdrawals, but you can only make so many withdrawals. That's why it's a negotiable order of withdrawal. So it's free. You have interest payments, but you can only write so many checks a year without getting a penalty before it becomes not free. That'd be similar on a type of a now account is a money market account. You get checks with a money market account, but you can only write so many checks per year on it. It's usually people use it maybe really to save money because it has a higher interest rate, but if they have an emergency, they can still get to that money. without having a fee. And then Lifeline checking accounts. These are usually for people that have had problems with checking accounts or money management. And so you might have a hard time opening up another kind of an account. So this is kind of like, hey, here's your last chance kind of account. So these are for low income consumers, or possibly, not necessarily, it doesn't have to be low income. It usually ends up being the way it is. But people with poor money management skills, or have just had some kind of problem in the past that ended up making their last checking account blow up on them. With these, there are minimum balances usually, but they're low. And occasionally there's not one. They could be non-existent. But again, you have a list of rules that you have to follow with a Lifeline checking account. And if you don't follow these rules, they usually just cut off your checking account and tell you, hey, you can come get your money. We're not giving you a checking account anymore.